In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. He had 3 ships and left from Spain. He sailed through sunshine, wind, and rain. Nearly every American has heard at least the first part of the famous poem by Jean Marzollo. Christopher Columbus sailed west in 1492 in search of a new route to Asia under the Spanish crown. He stumbled across the Americas, discovering the New World, leading to new expeditions that would make contact with great civilizations across the Americas. These civilizations were rich in gold and silver. Within just a few decades, men like Hernan Cortez and Francisco Pizarro led expeditions inland that would destroy the native population, toppling the mighty Aztec and Inca empires, uncovering a vast wealth of treasure that would change the region forever. Gold and silver was melted down along with sacred artifacts from looted temples. The Spanish established ports and colonies throughout the Americas. Spain shifted to large mining operations after treasure from the Maya and Inca ran dry. The discovery of massive silver deposits, like the ones at Potosi, turned Spain into a global superpower almost overnight. At its peak, Potosi was one of the largest and richest cities in the world. Its population boomed to over 200,000. Its mines producing enormous amounts of silver. 60% of all the silver mined in the world in the last half of the 17th century was mined from under the mountain Cerro Rico. Gold and silver was mined and sent across the Atlantic to Spain. To move all of the treasure across the Atlantic, Spain created a convoy system in the 1500s. It was heavily guarded and consisted of a large number of ships. It was known as the West Indies Fleet. 2 fleets operated each year. The New Spain Fleet sailed from Mexico. The Tierra Firme Fleet sailed from Cartagena. These fleets carried everything from silver bars and coins, gold coins and jewelry, gold and copper ingots, emeralds from Colombia, pearls from Venezuela, personal gold and silver items fit for a king, indigo, tobacco, anything that could be traded back in Spain. The galleons were massive and heavily armed with iron and bronze cannons. Every year, ships from both fleets met up in Havana, Cuba. Havana was an important hub known as the key to the New World. The harbor and city were protected by defensive systems against pirates and corsairs. The fleets formed a single convoy before making the treacherous journey back to Spain. The fleets followed routes from ports like Cartagena and Portobello up through the Caribbean, then meeting up in Havana before riding the Gulf Stream north past Florida before turning towards Spain. The stretch along the Florida coast was the most dangerous for many fleets. Hurricanes, shallow reefs, and pirates threatened the heavily loaded galleons. Even though the fleets had heavy cannons, pirates and privateers from England, France, and the Netherlands attempted to get their hands on this precious cargo. The fleet had to navigate reefs and shoals. In bad weather, this was nearly impossible. The time it took for the fleet to meet up in Havana sometimes put them directly in the path of the Atlantic hurricane season from June through November. When a storm hit a loaded treasure ship, entire fortunes could vanish in a single night. By the summer of 1622, the Terra Firma Fleet, under the command of the Marquis of Cadereyta, was already behind schedule. The New Spain fleet had already arrived in Havana a month prior. The fleets met up in Havana in August, the final destination before the long voyage back to Spain. There were some of the most extravagant ships ever assembled in the New World, including Nuestra Señora de Atocha and her sister ship Santa Margarita, and the smaller but still valuable Nuestra Señora de Rosario. Their holds were packed tight with treasure, silver bars and coins from Potosi, gold, emeralds, copper, indigo, tobacco, and personal fortunes of wealthy passengers. The fleet carried millions of pesos of treasure, worth billions of dollars today. The fleet knew that hurricane season was upon them and had to decide on sailing at once or waiting until winter or till next spring. With millions of pesos on the line, the decision was made to leave during hurricane season. On September 4, 1622, the fleet finally left Havana. They would follow the normal route north through the Florida Straits, ride the Gulf Stream, and then turn east towards Spain. Within days, the fleet encountered bad weather, strong winds, rain, and rough seas, but they managed. The storm then intensified into a full-blown hurricane off the Florida Keys. On September 6, the ships were sailing together, but began losing sight of one another, being tossed by the waves and hurricane-force winds. The Atocha and Santa Margarita managed to stay together, but they were being driven by strong winds towards the Keys. The Santa Margarita was the first to run aground. Some of her passengers were pulled into the water and drowned in the rough seas. 68 people were later rescued by the galleon Santa Cruz. The Atocha, heavily loaded, was riding low in the water, struggling to stay afloat, but she continued on. She struck the reefs, breaking her keel and main mast. She sank quickly, taking most on board with her. She rested on the bottom with her mizzen mast out of the water. 3 lucky sailors and 2 slaves managed to survive by holding on to the mast until rescue. The only survivors out of the 265 people on board. The Nuestra Señora de Rosario also ran aground in the storm, but suffered no loss of life. Multiple other ships in the fleet were wrecked or damaged. 7 or 8 ships were lost in the hurricane. The loss of human life was staggering. On the Atocha alone, around 260 people perished. Across the fleet, hundreds more were lost. Some survivors from other ships made it to the Florida Keys or were later rescued by Spanish ships sent from Havana. The survivors brought the first reports of the disaster back to the authorities in Havana. The surviving ships regrouped after the storm had passed. They decided against continuing on and turned around, heading back to Havana. The monetary loss was also staggering. The Atocha alone carried copper, silver, gold, tobacco, gems, indigo, and personal fortunes. When the ships went down, much of the treasure was scattered across the bottom. Within weeks, authorities sent salvage crews from Havana to recover what they could from the sunken fleet. They managed to recover some of the treasure, but the Atocha had sunk in deep water. Another hurricane on October 5th made recovery even more difficult. The storm had broken apart the Atocha and scattered her wreckage across the Keys. For years, salvage crews continued to search for any treasure that they could recover. Nearly half of Santa Margarita's cargo was recovered. A new technique was developed by using a brass diving bell. Slaves were lowered to the bottom in the bell, which served as a safe place for the divers to recover on the bottom. Strong currents buried the wreck, making recovery nearly impossible with the technology available. After years, Spain recovered only a fraction of what was lost. The rest remained hidden below the waves. For more than 300 years, the wrecks of the 1622 fleet remained hidden in the waters off the Florida Keys. Most importantly, the elusive Nuestra Señora de Atocha. Many had searched for the lost treasure, but all had failed. Mel Fisher was a former chicken farmer who moved to California to open up a diving shop. After moving to Florida, Fisher became a professional treasure hunter. He became obsessed with finding the Atocha in the 1960s. He moved his family and crew to the Florida Keys and began a decades-long search. For years, Fisher's team combed the ocean floor using magnetometers, small diving boats, tubes connected to propellers known as mailboxes. They used grid searches. They recovered scattered artifacts on the sea floor, coins and silver bars. They found anchors, bronze cannons, gold and silver, but not the main treasure. On July 20th, 1985, after 16 years of searching, Fisher's team made the ultimate discovery. They had located the main wreck site of Nuestra Señora de Atocha. What they found was beyond anything they could imagine. Over 40 tons of silver and gold, hundreds of stamped silver bars, gold coins, chains, emeralds, over 100,000 silver coins, weapons, tools, and personal belongings. The total value was estimated at nearly $500 million. It is one of the greatest treasure discoveries in history. Fisher's team continued searching the Keys. They also located and salvaged the wreck of the Santa Margarita. Today, artifacts from the Atocha and Santa Margarita are displayed in museums and in private collections. But not everything has been recovered. Spain's vast empire of gold and silver created the 1622 Tierra Firme Fleet. It ended the lives of over 500 people and lost millions of dollars in treasure. One man's obsession brought the treasure back to the surface after 3 centuries. An estimated 35% of Atocha's hold is still missing. Valuable gold and emeralds worth millions of dollars today. I want to thank y'all for watching, folks. I hope you enjoyed, and we will see you on the next. Peace.